Good day, everybody. Welcome to Bota Corpa Attorney's YouTube channel. Today, I'm with Justin McLachlan and myself, Tineo, and we'll be talking a little bit about customary marriage, especially with the concept of lobola.
Okay, so today we're looking at the definition of lobola. So this is looking at basically what is lobola. So when we're looking at the what is lobola, I'm going to define it for you guys. Lobola is basically when a man gives a gift to his girlfriend or the girlfriend's family in respect of a custom in terms of when he wants to marry this girl. So this basically is agreed to between the two families. The gift is basically traditionally given in the form of cattle, but these days it's mainly money. So we're not going to be giving cows generally these days, but possibly you could be, you never know. Anyway, moving along, we want to speak about how is lobola negotiated. So generally, lobola is first negotiated by a man sending a letter of intention to the family of the bride. The bride reciprocates this by sending a letter back to the family of the groom, accepting the negotiations and inviting the family over to obviously to start the negotiations. Once the family of the groom and the bride meets, they will determine what must be given as lobola. Obviously, this is going to refer to whether it's going to be cattle or whether it's going to be cash. Also, the families may agree when the lobola must be given. This speaks to things of obviously you can pay lobola in installments or things like whether you want to pay the lobola up front. These things are all things that you can determine during these negotiations. How the lobola is to be given, whether you want the lobola to be given in cash or whether you want it to be paid electronically. These are all things that one can consider when negotiating. So also another point is different factors go into consideration when determining the amount of lobola one might have to pay for their bride. So the different factors that go into consideration are, for example, the age of the bride. Another one is the amount of children she's had, her education level, whether she has a job. So all of these things are different factors that determine how much a gentleman is actually going to pay for his future bride, and all of these things obviously affect the amount of lobola that she may have to charge.
Yes, Justin is right. The requirement for a customary lobola marriage is that the prospective spouses, right, there must be a negotiation between the two families, a celebration, and both prospective husband and prospective wife need to be over the age of 18 and with common consensus that they want to continue on with the marriage, right? However, Section 3(1) of the Marriages Act kind of gives you a guideline of the requirement that is meaning when it comes to a celebration. So basically, you can look at this case law, Tambo versus Singadi. Basically, what happened here is that they had a wedding, right? And then later on, there was a dispute from the groom's family to say, there is not a valid marriage because they didn't celebrate according to their culture. However, the court here, the SAC, then looked broadly into Section 3(1) and said that it can be interpreted broadly. So basically, the fact that the attire between the bride and the groom was similar, and that she had a wedding dress, and further, they took it further to say that the deceased father, the groom's father, congratulated the prospective wife, and that was a recognition that she was now their bride. So basically giving the wife off to the other family had been done. So the court then said there was a valid marriage. Ladies and gentlemen, you can just read through this case law. It's quite interesting regarding people who feel that should they not complete ceremonies, that there wasn't a valid marriage. This is not true. The court does broadly interpret this section in the Act. Right. Then once you have done your Lobola negotiations and there's been a celebration and you've had teas and cookies and all nice things, you need to then go ahead and register your marriage. This is at any home affairs or registering officer according to the law, and you can register according to 3 different marital regimes. Please, if you have not catched our webinar regarding the different marital regimes, you are welcome to look through our YouTube channel. There is a slide there regarding marital regimes. So basically you have 3 options. You have marriage in community, and then you have marriage out of community, and then you've got a civil marriage, right? A civil union. You'll obviously have to opt for what best works for you as a couple, right? Either spouse may apply to the registering officer at Home Affairs for the recognition of their customary marriage. However, the registering officer may need to satisfy that the above requirements have been met, right? Alternatively, and more expensive approach is to approach a court upon the application to investigate the recognition of your marriage. So to avoid you going back to court once your families have a dispute, to apply to a court that it recognizes your marriage, we recommend after you've done your nice celebrations and you've had your brides and it's been a great weekend, the next Monday just head on to your Home Affairs and get your marriage registered. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, you need to then, when undertaking a Lobola negotiation, fulfill the requirement of a celebration. This is a nice, interesting case of Mbungela and another versus Maccabi. Né? So basically here, the court looked at, like I said previously, with the effect of Section 3.1 of the Marriages Act, right? The court ordered that the interpretation of this act is wide, and more specifically, the requirement of negotiation and celebration is causing a debate. Most cultures have their own ways of celebrating. However, not celebrating according to custom does not make the marriage invalid. I suggest, ladies and gentlemen, you look into this matter, right? Now, as well as a good questions have come about, what do you do with the kids upon Lobola negotiations, right? There is a custom in African customary law that we call Hapalenamani, meaning where the bride or prospective wife has children outside of the prospective marriage or were born from another man, right? This is an adoption customary marriage, right? Should he choose to marry the woman together with her child, he then adopts her child during the same period of the customary marriage is negotiated through the uncles and aunts responsible for the marriage negotiations, right? He either states his intention to adopt the child or expressly tells the negotiators that he will not like to adopt the child. So there are 2 scenarios here, a RAF matter and then a maintenance matter. Just quickly read through it. I think it is very informative and you guys would learn a lot from it. All right. However, ladies and gentlemen, please note that should you fail to express that you will not include the children as part of your Lobola, then it is automatically implied that you've accepted those children as your adopted customary children, right? And should the court find that you have been supporting them, paying school fees or anything of that nature, it can be implied that you have then consented to be an adoptive father towards the children. So my advice is that if your prospective spouse is having children that are not born of the man who is marrying you, then please, in your marital agreement between the 2 respective families, you must expressly indicate whether you want to take the children as part of the agreement or exclude them.
Okay, so now just taking a look at some of the consequences of a customary marriage. So obviously there was a position prior to the Recognition of Customary Marriages Act, and then there's a position after the commencement of the Customary Marriages Act. So before the commencement of the Customary Marriages Act, everybody married before the commencement of the act was deemed to be married in terms of customary marriages, and they didn't have a joint estate, meaning that they weren't married in community of property, and that these people were deemed to be married in a customary marriage automatically. The position since then has changed. Obviously, people who are married after the commencement of the act have been regarded as being married in community of property automatically. This is obviously unless they've specifically concluded an antenuptial contract prior to registering their marriage with Home Affairs. Obviously, if you guys want to conclude an ANC or something of the like, you'd have to come and see an attorney, someone like a Boetsokopo, whatever. We will draft this antenuptial contract for yourself prior to registering with Home Affairs, and then Home Affairs would capture this information to say that, look, you have a separate estate from your partners, and that what's yours is yours and what's his is his, separate. So that's how that would work. Look, obviously, with regards to your estates and everything, upon your death, things would work differently if you had ANC, in that what you wouldn't share in your assets and your liabilities. What is yours, like I said previously, and what's his is his, and that's how it would work.
So guys, after you've registered your marriage and you now know whether it falls before the commencement of the act or after, and you've drafted your ANC and everything in its place, and let's say now your husband would like to have a second wife, what we then follow is section 7(6) of the Marriages Act. This is where a husband wants more than one wife in customary marriage, right? This is an application made to court to approve a written contract which will regulate the future matrimonial property of his marriages. So basically what this means, ladies and gentlemen, is that the court, upon application, will have to see whether there was equitable distribution of property amongst the wives, and it has to take into account the different family groups that would be affected and the marital regime the husband would like to then apply. This marital regime must be across board, so you cannot now have your first wife being in community of property and then your next couple of wives out of community of property. You need to then establish one marital regime that will filter through to all your marriages, right? As well as that there's enough equitable distribution of property. When I say property, I mean assets or monetary money or value or anything like that. So if a great population of the African culture, you'll know that the spouse, the husband needs to then, if the first wife has their own house, he'd have to supply the rest their houses as well. So this, you can just get a general idea that each and every wife needs to have an equal lifestyle according to this section 7(6).
Okay, so just some more tips to a happy registered marriage, taking it back to our earlier comments. Obviously, once the customary marriage has been registered, celebrated in accordance with customary marriage, and everybody celebrates and everyone's happy, just to remember not to forget to obviously go to Home Affairs and register that customary marriage so that it's obviously effective by law. Otherwise, we're going to have some difficulties proving it in court. Obviously, it's more of a application to court to have it approved and everything. It's a longer drawn out process to prove it, and obviously it's expensive. So I would recommend that everybody who gets married customarily goes and registers their customary marriage by Home Affairs on the first instance. Otherwise, they're really going to have problems. It's going to lead to having to make affidavits and applications on applications to the court in order to obviously grant the marriage recognition as a customary marriage, obviously to grant you the same benefits that anyone else would get automatically upon divorce. So you know what I'm saying, it would just be a lot simpler to go to Home Affairs the following week or the week thereafter and just register that marriage. Obviously, if you want your marriage to be a marriage registered with an anti-nuptial contract, I would recommend going to see an attorney for someone like that to draft you up one. Another thing that is pretty new is a Lobola agreement. So if you want your negotiation agreements to be written down and recorded, I also recommend seeing maybe an attorney or someone of the like to maybe record all the negotiation agreements, so that if a future dispute does arise, that you have all of those negotiation clauses and everything set down on paper, so that if any future obviously disputes arises, that you guys have something written down on stone and it's all recorded, so that there is no hearsay evidence and you have solid proof to bring before the courts. And like I say again, just please don't forget to take your marriage to Home Affairs and have it registered on the first opportunity. Okay, so answering the question of whether you can get your Lobola back, look, there are diverging views when it comes to whether or not you can get your Lobola back. Generally, it's thought that one can't get the Lobola back. However, the following principles apply in respect of the return of Lobola. It's usually thought that if the man is responsible for the divorce or the breakup, that the Lobola doesn't have to be returned. However, that if the woman is responsible for the breakup, that the Lobola should or could be returned. And obviously, that if the breakup is mutual or the divorce is mutually between both the parties, that a settlement can be reached between the two families in respect of the Lobola. However, in practice, the male generally never ever really gets his Lobola back, so just bear that in mind. I don't think that we're really going to be changing this anytime soon. I know that it is unfair, but however, we don't really see the position changing anytime soon. Obviously, if you want to be the one to try and change the record or change the law in the country, we welcome you to, but honestly, practically, once Lobola is paid, we don't see it being refunded.
So we've touched on what requirements you'd have to then comply with for you to have a registered or recognized customary marriage, which is you need consent. Then as well, both parties must be over the 18, and then there must be a celebration and a negotiation. Right, we've extensively talked about it. Should you just want to refresh your memory, you're welcome to just start this video and then just go through it. All right, however, we do get circumstances where people who have done their Lobola negotiations would like to then divorce or dissolve their customary marriage, right? Commonly after the act, presuming that your marriage is registered, right, the application of divorce proceedings will then be your next step, right? This is of course linked to the Divorce Matters Act, right? Should you guys need more information about it, you're welcome to contact our offices, and we will assist you to drafting or getting your divorce proceedings underway, right? But naturally, should you guys register the marriage at Home Affairs, the Divorce Marriages Act will apply. But if there wasn't a registered marriage and it's just under customary law, your marriage is just governed by customary law, you'd have to go the customary route. That is, your two families having to meet and then trying to then get an amicable divorce or separation. Right, but this is why we stress you guys to please get in contact with us and get a Lobola agreement drafted by us, and you will definitely not have any regrets. Thank you so much for watching this YouTube channel, and we hope that you guys will see other YouTube webinars coming up throughout this month of February with our property matters, our marital matters, our general litigation matters. Should you guys want to then consult with one of our learned staff, you're welcome to give us a call. Alternatively, send us an email on the following email addresses. We thank you so much for your time and can't wait to see you guys back soon.